To place images in InDesign, there's a couple ways I can go about it. The way that most people approach it is to just drag an image in. I have a few different images that I'm working with here. One is this owl head that is actually saved as a grayscale image in Photoshop, by which I mean with Photoshop. If I look at this in Photoshop and go to the image color mode, it's actually grayscale. I'm going to do some things with this that will not work if it's a black and white looking image, but it's saved in RGB color. For grayscale modification to work, the image must be a grayscale image. So I have a color owl head. I have a pigeon with, this is a PNG file with the background dropped out, and this is the Photoshop file that I used to create it. But it's worth looking at here. So it has, it's non-destructive in that the file that I started with is still here. There's to see if I'm doing a good job of cutting out the background. Frequently drop a color, a couple different colors, so we can see how well there's a ghosting or not on the image. It's still kind of loose here, but for the sake of speed, I moved along. But that's an Illustrator, or sorry, a Photoshop file that is basically in appearance the same as my other one. Where'd it go? Hang on, bear with me. So these essentially look the same, but they are not the same in regard to file management, because if we look at the size here, this is 160 some meg file for the PSD file, and this is 15 megs for the PNG. It's still a pretty big file, but being mindful of the size of the files you're working with can add up. And for placing images in compositions when I'm ready to print, I want to work with the lightest I can, but with the most resolution. So to place an image, what I'm going to do is just drag this. I'm going to start with the owl. Whoa. I'm going to start with the barn owl head color. Because I had a frame there, it landed inside the frame, but I can also drag it, and there's a placement loader that will put the owl wherever I click and drag. So if there's an existing frame, it will drop the image into that frame if you hover over it, but you can also choose different locations. There are certain things that I can control about the image. So if I, in InDesign, if I'm clicking on this box, this is a photo in a box, right? So the image is in its own frame. And I can scale the frame if I just move it down. If I hold Command and Shift or Control and Shift, I can scale the image and the frame together. Or if I click on this little window here, I can move that image within the frame. There are some controls, depending on how big your screen is, there are some controls up here at the top, they'd be over here on the far right, that control the fitting, but I can also do some things in regard to automatic fitting with any image. So if I say I want the image to be about this big and I want the image to fit that box, I can hold Control and click on the image, go to Fitting, and fill frame proportionally. I can also control fitting, fit content proportionally, which means it will make the image as big as it can be without being cropped. That's different from fitting, control, fitting, fill frame proportionally.